Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we'll be covering Method CRM activities. My name is Wayne Barbaza. I'll be presenting today, and joining me will be Mike Mello, our customization expert, and he'll be available on the GoToMeeting panel to answer any questions that you may have. If you're Twitter users, you can actually follow this meeting afterwards. We'll be using the Method CRM activities hashtag as well. You can follow myself and Michael using @MethodWayne and @MethodMichael. Okay, so we'll get started. Again, you can ask your questions on the GoToMeeting panel. Just expand the question chat panel section, and then you can ask my questions there. The recording of this webinar will also be posted on the website for future reference. And for today, what we'll be doing is going over the Activities tab. So we'll go over the activities list, do some filtering, show you how it can be used for your day-to-day activities. We'll go through the new activity area, going through an example of creating new activities. I'll talk about activity types, creating follow-ups, recurring activities, and the ability to send an email from the activities screen. I'll go over relating other entities, so other activities, cases, and opportunities to activities that you have opened up. And then we'll go also over the new appointment, new task, and log call screens, which are in general convenience links for creating activities. And then lastly, the activity calendar. Okay, so let's jump over to my account. So here I'm opened up to the activities list in the activities tab. And from here, I get asked a lot what this table-like structure, the grids, can be used for. So I myself, this is actually the first screen I look at every morning as the account manager for all our end users. So using this filter here that's set by default, my active activities on or before today, that essentially gives me my to-do list. So I have an idea of here of all the tasks that I have to complete that are due on today's date or that I have not completed yet in the past. And those, obviously, because I'm selecting my filter here, it's going to be stuff assigned to me. So this will be stuff that's assigned to myself regardless of the customer. So I can have multiple customers here listed. And what I usually do is I can open up an activity. I look up what I actually have to do, perform the task, and once I actually complete it, I can go complete, save, and back. That'll just automatically knock it off this list here. And then I can continue working my other activities. So with this as well, the filter views here, it works off of the shared list features, which we'll be covering in another webinar. But if I were to select shared activities here, it would actually give me a view of everyone else's activities that I do have access to. If I did not have access to view anyone else's activities, then I wouldn't be able to see any. I'll still just be able to see my own activities. So it'll still follow those shared list rules. Okay, and so I can also filter here if I wanted to use this filter row at the top. If I wanted to see all my high priority activities that I have on my plate, I can just quickly type in high here. If I want to see all my particular activities for a certain customer that I know of, I can type in the name in the customer field, and they'll pop up there. Or perhaps maybe I want to see all the meetings I have scheduled for myself, then I can type that in here. So this is your way to quickly get like quick search results from the activities table. So you can get a kind of like a bird's eye view, or narrow it down to specific criteria that you're looking for in your activities. Okay. Before I go through the examples that we're going to go through, I just wanted to briefly describe. I get asked a lot what the difference is between the new activity, tab link, appointment, task, and log call. They're essentially opening up the same screen, but what we've done is just made it easier for you with common activity types here: appointment, task, and call. We've just created these tab links here so that you can quickly click on them and have some fields pre-filled in. So for example, and we've also removed fields that aren't really relevant to that type of activity. So for example, you'll notice here in new activity, you have a start date, completed date, duration. So when, for example, if you go to the log call, really, you know you're going to be, well, if I just clear this past form that I had filled out, the log call screen will pre-fill in the type to phone call incoming. It'll put the status to completed, because after a call, obviously it's not going to be in another status other than completed. And for a new task, that one you'll see is the same screen that's opening up, but we've removed like the completed date here, and for example, duration, start date, stuff that's not really relevant to a to-do type activity. So same thing for appointment. We've made the type meeting and took away some fields that aren't really relevant. So we'll go back to the new activity screen and go through an example. Let me just clear the form here. So let's say I have a customer, Amy Abrams. She phones in, and you can actually use this screen here, the activities list, to get an idea or get some context into her phone call. So let's say she phones in. She gives me her name. So I can say, if I find out that she's actually a current customer or has already contacted us, I can type in her name here, and I can already see here that there was an activity created on August 31st by myself. It was a phone call incoming. Amy requested a quote for item A, and I also created a follow-up for another method user, Crystal, to create an estimate and send it to Amy. And I can see here that follow-up activity is showing up and is scheduled on September 2nd for Crystal. So when I actually schedule that activity for her, Crystal will then see that activity show up in her to-do, or her quote-unquote to-do list if she has this filter selected and she's using this grid the same way. Okay. So what you can actually do is from the new, let's say that she phoned in and I'm in this tab already, and I just simply want to log a call. So this is after the fact that she already phoned in for a quote. I created the follow-up, but now she's phoning in, let's say, on September 1st, so before the Crystal scheduled activity. So I can say here, log call. I can start typing in Amy's name. If perhaps maybe I forgot her, or I don't have her first name, I can actually search for the customer name, company name, and the customer type. So if I actually type in lead here, it'll pull up all my leads. So Amy Rooms is a lead. I'll select her here. And let's put in some comments. Amy phoned in to follow up because she hasn't received a quote. Now from here, as you saw on the activities list, I was able to see a view of all the activities associated to Amy. When I'm actually on a activity form itself, I get that same context. So without me having to go into individual activities or to that activities list, I already have a view of what's been happening with Amy already on the left side here. So here I can see if she phones in and I'm putting in my comments, I can see that, yes, I have made or have received that initial phone call from her. I created a follow-up for Crystal, and that's shown here. So it gives you a bit more context into that phone call. So let's say for now, I'm going to complete these comments. I'll schedule another follow-up for Crystal. Let's go schedule a follow-up. And let's say the same day, let's say September 1st, I just want Crystal to phone Amy to give her an update. So I'll just say creating a phone call for Crystal to give Amy an update. So let's save this, complete, save the new. So now if I was Crystal, actually I have her account logged in here. I can go to the Activities tab. I can view all activities assigned to myself. Right now I'm Crystal. That's not completed yet. Or actually shared ones because it's going to be in the future, September 1st. So here I can see all the activities scheduled for, or if I was Crystal, for me for Amy Abrams. And the other one that I created, what was supposed to be for Crystal, I just didn't change the username to myself, so it should show up here. If I go like that. So here's that one that I meant to schedule for Crystal. So now if we go to that and actually perform that activity, you'll see here that the related activity comments came from the original activity that I created this follow-up from. So when Crystal opens this up, she's able to see why I created this follow-up for her. And as well, you can, if you wanted to actually relate this to something else, another activity, you can simply select this relate button here, link or relate link rather. So that's what shows up in the comments instead. So if this were, for example, a new call, and it was Amy again phoning in, once all her activities show up here on the side, I can then provide a bit more context and say, oh, Amy's phoning in right now because she's following up on a quote, so I can relate it to one of these activities here, indicating that. So one other thing from this listing here is you'll notice that when I initially created that that activity, I created an opportunity for that potential revenue. Opportunities is something we're going to be covering in another webinar, but what I can let you know about now is this tool here is smart enough to actually recognize that this activity is linked to an opportunity. So if I hit go to here, instead of actually opening up the well, I'll open up one now that doesn't have an opportunity. And you'll see here it opens up a dynamic tab link right in the Activities tab. So again, giving you the form with the context. Now, if it actually had an opportunity or a case for that matter related to it, if I hit Go To, it'll actually take me to the Opportunities tab. Because what we're assuming here is that because it's related to the opportunity, you also want to get a view of the opportunity, because perhaps maybe you might want to adjust the stage based on this activity or phone call that you're performing now. So from here, you can still edit that activity, because with the opportunity, we have sections for like the additional info for it, as well as creating new activities, viewing the existing activities related to that opportunity. So here you can still get a view of all the activities for Amy Abrams that are part of this, that are encompassed in this opportunity. And then you can, again, modify that one that you selected Go To for. So once you do that, you hit Go Back, it just simply takes you back to this activities list here. So the same thing would happen for cases. In the case where you have, let's see if I have an example. Just reboot my filter here. In the case where you have both an opportunity and a case, what it will do is give you a prompt with two options, OK and cancel. If you hit OK, it'll go to the opportunity tab. If you hit cancel, it'll simply go to the cases tab. So similar to opportunities, the cases area will allow you to edit the activity and any existing activities attached to that case. But we'll cover that again in another webinar. Okay, so now let's say Crystal, the day hits September 2nd, Crystal's ready to perform that activity that is scheduled for her. We'll just go here. And I'll do it all from my account. I happen to have access to all records, so I'll just pretend I'm Crystal here. And you'll see it did take me to the opportunity screen, but what I want to do is actually open it up in the activity area so that I can show you how we send emails. So let's go to one here that I can actually open up in the Activities tab. And let's say with this, I want to actually create the quote. So I can just say creating quote and sending to customer. And our normal business process usually is to, after sending the quote, we'll send a follow-up a week from now. So maybe I want to do an estimate follow-up here. And email outgoing, for example. So that creates yet another activity. So now let's say we want to send that follow-up when that day hits. What you can actually do from here is send an email. So we'll just select Amy again. I'll select the send an email option. And I have already a template for estimate follow-up, so I'll select that. And you'll notice it already filled in the field for Amy Abrams, the one I have on file for her. And down here, it actually used the merge field and already populated her name and whatever other merge fields that you may have. For example, if you're sending out a balance notice, if you use customer.balance, that would actually put in the balance value. So you can actually see what the email will look like before you send it. And just to show you how that works, if I was to actually pick someone else, let's pick Abby instead. And I'll reselect the template. You'll see there that it changed the name. So once I actually save, as long as that checkbox is checked, that will send the email off to that address. So here, I should be getting an email shortly. There it is, Dear Abby, and there's the email. So that's how emails are sent from activities. And what I could show you as well, a common thing is how do you actually view emails that you send out? How do you get a view of like the history of it? So if I go save and close, let's go back to the activities list. And select the activity that I believe it was this one that where did I send the to? Oops, sorry, another customer. That activity, can't seem to find it, but what happens is, I'll just go back to one of these. If it did have an email that was sent as part of it, let's go to this one for example, it would automatically expand that area that gets expanded here. And show the body. So when you open up an activity and you're scrolling down, if this area is expanded, it means there was an email that was sent, and this body is filled in with some text. Okay, so you've noticed that we've actually opened up a few windows a couple times, and Perhaps Crystal is now saying, you know what, we can save a lot of time if we actually create some activity types that automatically create some follow-ups without having to actually go in here, create an activity, select a schedule a follow-up. So what you can actually do is I'll just go back to the new activity area, clear my form, starting from scratch. Is perhaps now we want to implement this process where I'm going to edit, I'm going to create a new activity type. Let's call it estimate creation. So whenever I select this, that's going to tell the user to create estimate and send. So let's just go other for now, or perhaps task. And we can select to actually show this on the calendar. If you want it to show up on the activity calendar, this is what specifies that. If you want this particular activity type, 15 minutes before it's, 15 minutes before it's actually due. If you wanted to send an SMS text message or an email, you can cause a reminder. And as well, you can select if it's app specific. So sometimes you may create activity types that you do not want to have show up on your regular activities list here or on your activity calendar. What you can do is specify this checkbox here so that it'll only show up when you customize a screen and set up a filter for this type to actually show up there, whether it's a drop-down or a special calendar. But in general, when you have this selected, it won't show up in your activities list and calendar. So as I mentioned earlier, you can make it so that when estimate creation is selected as an activity type, automatically it'll create another activity. It'll expand that follow-up section, is really what it's doing. So maybe Crystal is the one who's responsible for all these quotes and following up with them. So you can say, you can then create another follow-up, which would be like your estimate follow-up. So email outgoing, maybe you want it 3 days right after sending out the quote. Then you can have it so that this will be created, this follow-up, every time you create an activity with that type. So we'll go save and close. I'll just clear this again. So now if we select estimate creation, you'll see that it automatically created that follow-up. So it's a time-saving feature, and it actually is just making sure your all these follow-ups activities that are meant to be scheduled are actually done. So that's a good way to save some time. Okay. So we'll clear this again. And now let's say after we've gone through the process, we've actually invoiced that customer, and now we're getting him into our cycle, like our service cycle. So maybe we want to create some recurring activities. Perhaps you have some monthly visits or meetings or phone calls simply to check in on the customer. So what you can do is create recurring activities. So let's say we want to create that as a monthly checkup type. We'll select, again, Amy Abrams here. And we can just put monthly checkup as a description. And then you'll want to hit the schedule a recurring activity checkbox. So here it's quite customizable. You can pretty much set it for any type of pattern you like. For this monthly checkup, what I'm going to do is just leave it as is monthly. I'm going to, let's see, we're on the last Wednesday of August, so I want to start it from today. So I can just go last Wednesday of every month. I'll just leave those settings as is, and I can specify a date range between which I want to create those follow-ups. So from here, if I simply go insert recurring dates, it'll create those activities for me. And the is to be renewed checkbox, what that is actually just a flag on this series. So what happens is when you schedule or when you create an activity and you have this box, recurring activity selected, it essentially makes this activity a series. So it's kind of like the master that is kind of like the backbone or series of this set of activities. When you want this series to actually be renewed, you can just simply have this flag set so that perhaps if you wanted to do a customization where you can view all the series or activities that actually need to be renewed, then this is how you would display that. Because then you'd be able to see, oh, this, when it pops up, this series does need to be renewed and you need to set up another set of recurring dates. So that's all that flag does there. So you'll see here, a whole bunch were created. If I actually just do a quick refresh here on the activities portion, you can see all the monthly checkups that were, and if I just do expand, so you can get a bigger view, you'll see all the activities, the recurring activities that were set up. Okay. And one thing I didn't point out, pretty obvious, you do have all your contact info here. So without needing to, I myself, I like to actually look, when I'm looking at an activity, I have a phone call perhaps, it's early in the morning, I use this to actually see, are they on the West Coast? If they are, then I'll probably wait to actually perform this activity. So it's just a bit more context, giving you Twitter info here. So if you could actually select that, it takes you directly to the method account, or the Twitter account. As you can see, Amy looks like me. So we can go now to the activity calendar. So from here, this is another helpful tool. It allows you to actually just view, rather than having to type in some text. You can just view your schedule as if you're like looking at perhaps your Outlook calendar. Then simply highlight a block of time, right-click, and select New Appointment. And then based on what you highlighted, that's what will be filled in for your activity times. So you'll see there 1 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. as I highlighted. So once you save and close, you can also edit. So once that activity is created, you can go ahead and even edit it from here. You can change the filters here so that you can get a view of maybe multiple users. So you can go apply filter. That'll make it so you can get a view of more than one method user. And you can even change here the layout. So if you want a week view, you can select it like that. Again, right-clicking, new appointment. would create activities like that. So you can create activities and edit them from each of these different types of layouts. So there's the work week view and timeline and the month view here. So functionality hasn't changed much with the calendar from before. It behaves similarly. It's just, I guess, better aesthetics and also just a bit of a different layout. But being able to create new activities and edit them is the same as before. Okay, let me just look one more time to see if I covered everything here. Okay, so looks like we covered everything. Again, if you do have any more questions and you weren't able to ask Mike during this webinar, you can post them on the forum. And this webinar, again, will be posted on the website. So again, there's our Twitter info if you like. And that concludes today's webinar. Thank you very much for attending. On behalf of Mike and myself, take care and see you next time.